Chapter 21. I'm taking you to a new land. I had received a prophetic word in front of everyone back in Michigan in a church service. The Lord said that He was going to take me to a new land, and it was Him that had been closing the doors, waiting for me to run out of gas, trying to do my own thing. That is exactly what had happened, and I was now walking out that word. I woke up in Omaha, Nebraska on New Year's Day of 2005. My friend Paul loaded up his truck and helped me move. I had much favor with my new landlord and was living in a nice place for very little money. Everything on the surface looked good at the new job. I had been told over the phone that I'd be getting appointments handed to me like I had back in Michigan. I would be responsible for only a few of my leads. However, I quickly learned that that was not true. The job was based on generating my own leads with very little call-in action from the customers. Once I realized I had been conned, I was not very happy or compliant. The reason that the sales manager insisted that I not come for an interview, which I wanted to, was because he did not want me to know the truth. He cleverly used the winter weather as the excuse that I did not have to interview because he did not want me driving from Michigan to Nebraska on the slick roads. He also stroked whatever pride I had left and told me that my record was so outstanding that he simply wanted to know when I could start. I also had foolishly told him over the phone that my husband had died with no insurance and I had lost our home. He figured I was desperate and would be a submissive puppet. I now know that God allowed this to happen because it was the only way He could get me to Omaha, Nebraska. He had to use something that was very familiar for me to leave Michigan. I did not know one person in this town when I moved. I had very little money, and it was a very scary and lonely time. I lasted in that position for 6 months and hated every minute of it. I had a guaranteed salary for 3 months, but the rest of the time was straight commission and obtaining my own leads. I regret it now, but after I resigned, I raised hell at the corporate office. I wrote to the new president of the company and I told him what had happened. In hindsight, it would have been better to simply leave and not burn any bridges or threaten to blow them up. Eventually, the people involved in misleading me were all fired. I took another sales job, and that lasted 3 months. I was having a very hard time finding my niche in Omaha. On Thanksgiving Day, the Holy Spirit woke me up at 4 a.m. He said to me, "If you do not get this hate out of your heart, you will continue to go around in circles and chase your tail like you have been." I spent the entire day on Thanksgiving crying and making a list of everyone that had done me wrong and that I hated. I thought that had been taken care of, but God was digging very deep and knew the truth. That day was the beginning of a long process of being delivered from strongholds that had kept me bound. Once I had made my list, I could not believe how long it was. One by one, I asked God to give me the ability to forgive them with my heart and not my head. I realized that I could not do it alone and He had to help me. I also had to forgive myself. I was the worst one on the list because I still had not forgiven me. God also revealed to me that I was angry with Him because I had blamed him for being married to Harold. He gloriously set me free from that lie with the following dream. Harold and I were pictured on the stage in the church where we had been married. We were getting ready to take our wedding vows, but the pastor had not yet started the ceremony. The back doors of the church swung wide open, and a woman yelled very loudly 3 times, "Michelle, don't do it! Michelle, don't do it! Michelle, don't do it!" Whenever I have God dreams or prophetic dreams, I normally wake up immediately. I did in this case as well. I said, "Lord, what are you saying?" He answered right back and said, "I did not put you in this marriage. You put yourself in it. I sent your mother, your father, and Harold's mother to warn you not to marry him. It was not my fault because you were warned and have been holding me accountable for your disobedience and have been blaming me." Right on, God. I can't even begin to tell you what a profound dream and answer that was, and how it released me from the anger that I had towards God. Shortly after that dream, he also gave me a dream about the child that I aborted. I had asked for forgiveness many times, but still felt very guilty. He pictured himself, Jesus, standing, holding the male baby in his hands. I also woke up after this dream, and he revealed who the father was, and let me know that he was holding this baby in heaven. He told me he had forgiven me for the abortion, and now I needed to forgive myself. This also was a huge forgiveness because I had been carrying much guilt about this decision. It was briefly after this event that the Lord gave me another word that was very encouraging. I was in the process of removing old, dirty carpeting in my bedroom with the intention of redoing the wood floors underneath. As I was on my hands and knees scrubbing the wood floors, the Lord said, "You are going to write a best-selling book in this apartment, and it's going to set many people free." I had heard that similar prophetic word come from other people back in Michigan, but God had never told me directly. If he did, I wasn't listening and I didn't believe it. I hung on to that promise, and I knew that it was my mission in Omaha to write a book. As I stated in the introduction, so much of it is embarrassing and controversial that I did not want to do it, and nor did I think I knew how to do it. To put the last 5 years in a nutshell, I would say that this has been an adventure in faith and learning to rely on God and God alone. I have quit questioning the ways that he chose to provide for me. I made the determination that I was going to stay away from men and drugs because the two had always gone hand in hand. The spirits of lust and addiction hang out together, and they never seem to have any problem finding a willing vessel. I will admit that since my affair with Jim, that I had a few one-night stands. They were all about pleasure, and the guilt was certainly not worth the few minutes of fun. I've also gotten high on pot a few times as well. However, it had been nothing remotely compared to the years that I walked around high all day. The few binges that I did go on, I would always say after I sobered up, I can't believe that I walked around stoned more than half my life. I am now very happy to be totally aware of what is going on inside me, around me, and ahead of me, instead of staying in a drug-induced coma. The Lord also revealed to me that one of the reasons that I rationalized staying high back in Michigan was because he would still talk to me when I was stoned, which was true. I figured that if I could hear his voice, even when I was ripped, I really had no incentive to get sober.